Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Our flagship TV and radio stations here on the Megacast network of community television, radio, and internet outlets, bringing you the latest COVID-19 news and other top stories from around Oakland County each and every day, live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on our family of stations and outlets, and throughout the afternoon and evenings and weekends for replays and on demand on CivicCenterTV.com. We have a great show ahead of you today, and we are also pleased to be joined by a Facebook partner on the internet side. Today we are live in high definition with the West Bloomfield School District. Then our TV stations, Comcast, Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. You can tune in on two great stations by those options depending on where you are at and who your cable provider is. In Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin, that cable provider is Birmingham Area Municipal Access, a service of the Birmingham Area Cable Board. In West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake, that provider is the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission. Underwriters of Civic Center TV and Lakes FM, we appreciate their continued support as we keep bringing you the news and information of the day. And then our two great radio stations, of course, 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship station, and then 88.1 WBFH, the BIF. That is the service of the Bloomfield Hills School District under the leadership of station manager Ron Whittables. We thank their entire team at the BIF for joining us each and every day. They have great students that do broadcasting in the afternoons live on their station as well during the school year. They'll be getting back to that very soon, and give them a listen as well while you're tuning into our show each and every day. Great stuff from the BIF all throughout the school year. So what we do here on the show, it's not just a regular broadcast, not just a regular simulcast, not just a regular webcast. It's a little bit of everything together, coupled with a number of community television, radio, and other media outlets to bring you the latest news and information about COVID-19 and other top stories. And today, our top stories, as always, on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. Today's top story: bowling centers file lawsuit demanding to reopen. The Bowling Centers Association of Michigan is taking a strike at Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Members say their industry is suffering a huge loss after ordered to be closed in March. A quote from them: If we can't open on September 1 or sometime shortly thereafter, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of our industry members to stay afloat, said Michael Scherer, president of the Bowling Centers of Michigan. The organization represents 165 bowling alleys across the state, and that's one of those final few sets of services and industries and businesses that remains unable to be open under the Michigan Safe Start Plan, Ronnie, and bowling alleys now starting to get really frustrated and taking action against the governor.
I think one of the issues came to light is once the casinos were allowed to open, a lot of these other businesses are like, hey, wait a minute here. We need to be a part of this reopening plan. Bowling alleys, a lot of them are quite large. So they're saying, why can't we have the same type of regulations to be safe, to allow people to come back and be safe, maybe only do 15%, 20%, 50% capacity, like restaurants, things of that nature. However, we have also seen other lawsuits filed from the movie theaters as well as from the gyms that they did not win. I know some of those are still in the appeal process, so it'd be interesting to see how this plays out as well. But again, they are larger facilities, so maybe that could make a little bit of a difference here.
And an interesting argument comes from what you said about the casinos being reopened at limited capacity, at 15% capacity in most cases in the lower parts of Michigan. There are a lot of touch points at casinos, and there are a lot of touch points similarly at bowling alleys. However, they are constantly cleaning the shoes, which would be a huge issue. They're cleaning them after each and every use in regular times. The bowling balls are regularly cleaned, as are the pins, and so there are ways to limit touch points at bowling alleys, so you can understand the frustration. But the governor, of course, taking extra precautions, sometimes a little more than maybe she needs to be taking in response in order to keep the state safe. And a lot of the courts have been hesitant to reverse her decisions because of the caution that's being taken against COVID-19. You don't want to have a situation where you're too lenient and things go awry, like we've seen happen in many other states. Well, in other news about things being canceled and shut down due to COVID-19, we've seen the Mountain West Conference yesterday, the Mid-American Conference earlier on in the previous week had canceled their football seasons, and now it is looking like the Big Ten football season is also in jeopardy. The Big Ten is expected to make another decision on its college football season today, but the impact of it could vary widely as league presidents are considering pushing back the start of the season to September 26 or postponing it to the spring, one conference told ESPN. The presidents are expected to meet today, and although they are still considering becoming the first Power 5 conference to postpone fall sports, the majority of their athletic directors are ready to quote-unquote pull the plug. While the most likely options seem to be pushing back the start of the season or postponing it until the spring, it's certainly possible that they wind up somewhere in between. This becoming a huge debate even after the announcement that there was allegedly a vote by the Big Ten that resulted in what was said to be a 12-2 vote, with only Nebraska, the University of Nebraska, and the University of Iowa voting in favor of continuing the season and not canceling it. Other news came out later on the day. Many Big Ten members denied that there was a meeting, that there was a vote, and that discussion is happening today. And he had coaches such as Jim Harbaugh of the University of Michigan calling out the decision as being done too quickly and hastily, and that there are ways to play a football season safely with the players taking extra precautions beyond what they would as a regular student and civilian.
This has been a hot mess. I think what happened is they voted, that information made its way public, and you had a huge pushback from a lot of these coaches. Like the presidents, it appears as if maybe they made these decisions without the coaches being privy to their decision. And then the coaches went public, and now the players are also going public. But this opens up a huge, huge Pandora's box, which could also lead into the old argument that's been going on. Should these players be compensated further than just their tuition and their scholarships?
And that's something that has been hotly debated, even among the players who are saying, let us play, or sure, we'll play. There's been a divide there saying, we'll play if you pay us. Where there's a pandemic going on, we are taking a considerable risk going out on the field. We should be paid in this situation. And there's others that are saying, we just want to play football. We're already taking precautions. We've been working at this for months. Some of us have been on these teams for years and are finally getting a big opportunity to show our talents and potentially play at the next level, even if it's a seventh round pick in the NFL draft, or you're going undrafted and you're signed to a deal, or you're playing in the Canadian Football League. For many, this is an opportunity that if it's gone, it's gone. And they want to play ball. And then you also have further complications where conferences like the Big Ten could potentially cancel their season, but then you have other conferences like the SEC who are saying, well, come on in. We're not canceling our season. Join our conference for a year. Even if the NCAA says they're not going to play a full season, the SEC will. You can join the SEC for a season. University of Michigan, other colleges that want to join from other conferences, come on in, play ball with us. So there's already a debate not only on whether or not to have the sports go on, but there's also a considerable amount of factors that come into play after a decision is made in terms of the future of the game, because of all these complications and these desires and these individual interests, sport to sport, coach to coach, player to player. Really complicated stuff. Right?
I will say, I think this boils down to money.
Oh, yeah.
This is about the money. And so we're going to have Woody Woodriffe with Fox 2. He'll be on a little bit later to talk more in depth about this. And obviously, you guys know Tyler's the sports part of this team. I don't really watch sports or pay much attention to it. So I'm sure you guys will have a lively discussion about this one.
Oh, yeah. I'll surely go into much more detail about this, get to the nitty gritty. And by then, we may have a lot more information, or Woody may have a lot more information about the discussions being had today by the Big Ten Conference about whether to continue all sports, including, of course, college football. Other news at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. The governor vetoes a bill to give healthcare workers legal immunity during the state of emergency. Governor Gretchen Whitmer vetoed legislation that would have shielded healthcare providers from lawsuits for care provided during the state of emergency, claiming the bill would unnecessarily endanger patients. The legislation, Senate Bill 899, would have granted healthcare providers and facilities immunity from civil or criminal lawsuits for injury or death during the state of emergency unless they engaged in criminal misconduct or intentionally harmed a patient. The bill would also have retroactively applied immunity to healthcare workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, which officially started on March 10th. In her veto letter, Governor Whitmer acknowledged her action to invoke liability protections for certain healthcare providers at one point during the COVID-19 pandemic as new cases were surging. But she took issue with Senate Bill 899 automatically extending immunity to healthcare providers and facilities anytime a state of emergency is declared without consideration for whether such a measure was necessary. So Governor Whitmer taking action against this bill. Reasons why she took action against it are justifiable, but there's also a lot of sentiment that goes into this bill that probably still needs to be under further consideration, will be under further consideration and possibly negotiation as these healthcare providers and healthcare workers are doing their absolute best to fight COVID-19, but it's a novel virus that we still don't know everything about. Complications are going to happen, and there needs to be some protection there for those who are doing their best to fight this on the front lines and learn about it before we all learn about this virus, but still are taking on considerable liability with their patients if things do go wrong.
I think what we saw is in this situation, their normal protocols that they would typically usually take could not be followed because of the pandemic, but also in the beginning it was the shortage of all the PPE, so they were trying to come up with new ways to sterilize that equipment and reuse the equipment excuse me, which could later lead to some issues. So many different facets to this that when you are in a pandemic or a crisis such as this, sometimes it's about the moment and trying to save as many lives as you can rather than being able to feasibly follow all the protocols that are laid out in the rules and regulations for you to be able to do that.
More stories online, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Lastly, today, an update. Lawmakers are now investigating postal delays. We previously reported that Senator Gary Peters had opened an investigation into cuts to the United States Postal Service. An update for you. Democratic Senator Gary Peters of Michigan and postal workers are accusing the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, of forcing workers to leave their work unfinished in order to slow down mail service. Those delays came as the country grapples with the coronavirus pandemic and looks ahead to the presidential election. Postmaster DeJoy is firing back, saying, quote, "Drama and delay does not get the mail delivered on time, nor does it pay our bills. Without timely legislative and regulatory reform, we will be forced to take aggressive measures to cut costs and bridge the divide." The USPS reported a net loss of $2.2 billion in the third quarter of 2020's fiscal year ending on June 30th. So the debate about the Postal Service continues on, Ronnie, as delays were in place during the primary elections, made mail-in voting, which was a lot more common due to the pandemic, and in Michigan, no reason absentee voting, made that a lot more tough to complete. And Senator Gary Peters not holding back, trying to continue this push forward, now accusing the Postmaster General of some foul play in creating those delays.
During the coronavirus, it's not just the absentee ballots that we've seen an increase of, but also so many more people are doing a lot of their shopping online, so things are being delivered. So I think that is plaguing into the financial problems of the U.S. Postal Service. Their financial problems are not new. We've been seeing this for several years. You know that, like, they've been trying to increase the price of stamps and some of their services to try to make up for that lack of funding. They haven't been able to do so. So this is going to be an issue. Can they balance their budget, or do they need a bailout from the lawmakers and the taxpayers, or do they cut their services?
A lot of questions still at play for the United States Postal Service. We'll keep you updated on that with more stories about that and other topics at civiccentertv.com. /coronavirus. In addition, we have information from the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities. Direct links to their COVID-19 related pages, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, your home in Oakland County for up-to-date information on the COVID-19 pandemic and other top stories in the area. As we continue this fight against COVID-19, we're now into the thick of the month of August, and we're still going on strong 5+ months. Actually, March 10th being the beginning of the pandemic in the state of Michigan. We're now past the 5-month point. We're now 5 months and 1 day into battling this pandemic. Still some nuance to it, still new information coming in constantly, and we're pleased to be joined by our first guest today for an angle on that on the first responders side. Captain Matt DeRousse joins us from the Bloomfield Township Fire Department once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Captain, thank you for being with us today.
Morning.
Appreciate having you on. How are you? How's the team over at the Bloomfield Township Fire Department?
Everybody's doing well, holding up good.
That's good to hear. So we've had, in the month of July, we had a bit of an uptick in COVID-19 cases. It's leveled off a bit and plateaued a bit, but there's some changes to what we've been seeing in the trends related to COVID-19. A lot more younger people are getting infected with COVID-19, and lately we've seen a lot of hot debate about public gatherings or private gatherings of people for grad parties, the family and friendly get-togethers, and so on. That is leading to further spread of the virus. In Bloomfield Township, has your department, in partnership, of course, with the police department and with the township office, have you had any issues with gatherings in your community that may potentially be harmful, such as those?
I'm sure there have been some of the grad parties and things like that. We don't necessarily get word of that. As far as I know, things are going pretty well here. But that is, all those things that you mentioned are the risk. The younger generation right now have grown impatient. You mentioned 5 months into this. There are larger gatherings, whether it be the grad parties, whether it be travel sports, which has been happening all summer long. All of these things were put into place and able to carry on with safeguards, the distancing and the masks. But what I'm hearing is a lot of these sporting events, they are not doing, what they really should be doing to keep themselves separate. So with this increase in activity, we're going to see the increase in cases that we have.
Captain DeRousse, at that point with those sporting events and with those private gatherings, what can you do as a first responder, as the public team that is on the front lines battling this, and with the education of the community being paramount? What do you do in that case to, you're not necessarily going to tell these families that they shouldn't be having these rites of passage moments or these celebrations of milestones in life, but they have to be able to do them safely and smartly. What does your department do in that case to provide that education to these people and maybe lead them to a better path where they're not potentially putting themselves and maybe others in danger?
Well, the word of education is exactly what we have to do. We have to just get the word out and let them know that these safeguards are in place for a reason. Distancing is important for a reason, and face coverings are important. We have to lead by example. We can't enforce really what's going on out in the community. Outside of just the education aspect, that's what we can do. Inside our department, we also have to enforce, make sure that all of our personnel know that this type of activity outside of the workplace is really what's going to bring COVID-19 into our workplace. We have a lot of the personal protective equipment. We have a lot of protocols in place so that when we're actively on medical runs and having exposure to potential COVID patients, we're protected. So we feel very safe here at work. It is what is happening outside of our work day that increases our risk. So we just have to stress and educate with our own personnel that be very careful what you do when you leave here and don't attend those type of gatherings. And if you do, or if you have to, make sure you do have face coverings, social distance, and keep those things in the forefront of your mind when you're doing it.
So you mentioned a little bit about outside and being outside. I know that a lot of the businesses, the restaurants, and have been able to expand into their parking lots and in some cases the roadway so that they can offer service to more people. How is the fire department working with some of these businesses about safe practices in that arena?
Our fire marshal has worked very closely with a lot of the businesses. The businesses will work with the building department and the township administration with a proposal that then has to get run through the course, through the building and planning. And then the plans are examined by our fire marshal, and he makes recommendations based on what he sees. And that is spacing, safety, spacing from roadways, it's the occupancy level, it's barriers, all of those things are taken into consideration. A lot of them have wanted to put a temporary structure, temporary tents, and all of those things have to comply with fire code. So we've been very involved with the restaurants in our area.
Matt DeRousse with us. He is the captain of the Bloomfield Township Fire Department, with us on the Oakland County Megacast and all across the local area, including some of the local stations in the Bloomfield Township area, such as 88.1 WBFH, the Biff and Birmingham area municipal access. We thank them, of course, for being with us each and every day. So, Captain DeRousse, another thing we've seen come up in the last couple of weeks is Governor Whitmer has encouraged departments throughout the state to put more emphasis on enforcement and of course education once again of the COVID-19 compliance regulations for businesses, for public gatherings, and so on. What has your department's educational efforts in the community had to increase in recent weeks? Are people starting to really pick up those messages that you've been sending out over these past 5 months, taking them to heart, and is Bloomfield Township doing a great job of educating itself at this point?
I think so. Yeah, I really have not been aware of large gatherings or violations or problems in the area. So I do think the message from very early on was to comply with Governor Whitmer's orders. I know the police department has, from the very beginning, kept an eye on, and I really don't believe they've had to do a whole lot of enforcement. They watch it, they break up the gatherings. They're present. So I think the community's been very safe as a whole from what I'm seeing.
Captain DeRousse, just another couple minutes with you on the Oakland County Megacast. Captain Matt DeRousse, of course, with the Bloomfield Township Fire Department. Anything else that's important for the people of Bloomfield Township or even surrounding areas to know as we're going forward, as we are now in the thick of month 5 of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I'm actually curious to see what's going to happen here this fall with the schools at the end of the summer and fall with schools and what's going to happen here locally. I've heard that in the Bloomfield Hills School District that families have a choice to either come to school or stay home. But I know this is ever changing as we're getting more and more data and they're reviewing their process and what they're going to do. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out this fall. I know that there's a lot of concern. I know that population with the younger adults, they just aren't all that compliant in terms of social distancing and keeping spread apart, which is going to put some families at risk. It's going to put faculty at risk. So for me, I'm very curious to see in the next couple of weeks what happens here.
Captain DeRousse, anything else for us today?
Nope, just continue to remember all of those things that we've learned since April. Keep your distance, keep your gatherings small, just be smart, be considerate when you're out in the public, wear a face covering. That really does make a difference. And just as a reminder for all, when you wear a face covering, it doesn't have to be an N95. It's just a face covering to keep your particulates from being exhaled. And it's really protecting others around you if you happen to have the virus and you're not aware of it. So it's a courtesy. It's not there's a lot of debate about, well, that's not going to protect you. Well, no, it's not. But if we all have face coverings on and we are minimizing the droplets and the amount of exposure to the virus, then we're all better off. So that's the only thing I'd like to remind people to do, and just keep doing what you're doing. Everybody's doing pretty well so far in the state of Michigan.
We appreciate having you on today, Captain.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Captain Matt DeRousse from the Bloomfield Township Fire Department with us on the Oakland County Megacast on our family of TV, radio, and other media outlets. And Ronnie, such important information that he continues to provide, and other fire departments continue to provide to the community. And education's been such a key part of this, and it continues to change as people learn more about the virus and as people begin to let their foot off the gas a little bit in terms of following those COVID-19 guidelines. We've seen an uptick in grad parties and family and friend gatherings on private occasions that are not necessarily being socially distanced and have had some cases pop up from those, and that younger people we've seen here, even in the local area, throwing parties, and COVID-19 is spreading from there. So education still, even though it's a lot of the same information, the more that it's out there and the more that's being explained and the more that it's being emphasized, I think it gives it a better chance of being taken to heart.
And we should also mention that one of the reasons you see the odd angles on the cameras here in the studio, if you are watching, is because we do keep the 6 feet distance. It's been measured, and we wear a mask as soon as we leave the studio. And I sanitize this building like crazy. I'm like the mother hen around here. I'm constantly walking behind them with spray and sanitizers and hand wipes and all of that stuff. So we want to let people know that we are being respectful of that as well. So we do talk about it because we are going to see a huge increase in the number of cases going into the fall as the kids go back to school. I would imagine that that's going to happen, and that they are preparing for that scenario as the kids go back, especially young kids. How do you teach, a second grader to keep a mask on all day? Kids are kids. They trying to teach them to stay apart from one another. They play together. They interact with one another. It's bound to happen that there are going to be cases in the schools as we return to the classrooms this fall.
Yeah, and it depends on how many of those cases come up, and a lot of that's going to depend on how safe we are and how seriously we take those precautions, because you can take all the precautions in the world, and sometimes they work perfectly, and sometimes they don't. But if you don't take those precautions, you're putting yourself and others at even greater risk, because it's better to have some protection than to have none at all. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about some more different forms of art, including some ink. And then we'll talk with, of course, Woody Woodriffe about the Big Ten's decision-making regarding continuing going forward with the football season, or are they going to cancel it? That and more coming up. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on our family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this quick break.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19: wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward. not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus-test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of the Oakland County Megacast network of TV, radio, and other community media outlets, including 88.1 WBFH The Biff, 89.3 Lakes FM, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, and Civic Center TV. Today, in addition, we're on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District via Facebook Live. We appreciate them joining us today, and we'll be joined later on by Dr. Gerald Hill, the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, for an update on fall education, as well as the progress of that new middle school that's going up on Orchard Lake Road on the current campus of Orchard Lake Middle School. That coming up later on in the second hour of the Oakland County Megacast. We thank you for tuning in. You can watch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon as we continue to talk to a number of interesting guests from throughout the local area about a number of topics in relation to COVID-19 and other top stories. And we're pleased to be joined now by the owner of Eternal Tattoos, Terry Welker, to talk about his business's impact from COVID-19 on the Oakland County Megacast. Terry, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to have you on. How are you? How's your team over at Eternal Tattoos been doing?
Things are good. They're as good as to be expected. It's a little different, with the COVID thing going on. We just opened back up in late June, so we were shut down from pretty much the middle of March until the end of June. We're back in business.
So as you were shut down, and then when you came back from being shut down, what measures do you put in place at that point to keep your customers safe? Because tattoo artistry is something that is very close and personal, and it doesn't really make for social distancing. So what do you do in that case to continue to provide this service, this personal service to people, continue to work your craft, but do so in a safe manner?
Well, fortunately, when I built my business, I've been in business since 1980, started tattooing in 1976, but all my locations, we have 5 locations. When I built my studios, I built all our rooms are private rooms, so when a client comes in, meets with the artist, he's in a private room separate from the rest of the artists. At each location, it's private. All our artists have a long time ago got bloodborne pathogens certificates, so they're all understand the cross-contamination. What we do now, though, is you have to have an appointment to even come into the shop. You have to call, talk to the receptionist, talk to the artist, get the time that we know you're coming in. You come to the door, ring the doorbell, knock on the door. The receptionist will verify who you are, bring you in, take you to the artist that your appointment's with. You'll be in. You got to have the mask on the whole time you're on the premises. You have to have your mask coming in. All our artists have to wear masks, so it's something we just got to get used to. Something we got to comply with. We don't have walk-ins where people are congregating out in the waiting area. So it's pretty much a one-on-one. Not a room full of people. You come in, meet with your artist, go into your room, get tattooed, take care of business, and that's pretty much it.
Terry, you said you had 5 locations. How many employees do you have? And also, I've been kind of just fascinated by tattoo artists because it is such an art. How do people get into it, and are there enough artists out there?
Well, I could use 2 more artists right now, but we have all my artists are contractors. They pay rent. They're not actually employees. They're self-employed. So, but we have right now with 4 of my locations, we have 32 artists. I could use 2 more artists. Some of my artists have been with me for over 20 years. I have probably half a dozen of Eternal artists that have been there 20 plus years. But tattooing has changed so much. Like I said, I opened Eternal Tattoos in 1980. I was a one-man shop, pretty much doing flash off the wall. It was nothing like it is now. I mean, MTV came along, started showing all the rock stars, all the pro athletes with tattoos. Kind of opened the door, made people say, wow, man, if they got a tattoo, I want to get a tattoo. So it became a lot more acceptable instead of, you know, if you had a tattoo, you're either a biker or you're in service. That is gone. And the quality of tattooing is just unbelievable how much it's changed. Back in the day, during my time that I tattooed for 20 plus years, I'm a traditional artist. My work's pretty simple. My biggest thing was my outline, my doing real clean work, but not nearly how well these artists are literally can draw. I mean, they're coming from different backgrounds. They're coming from a whole different world of where I came from, and the quality of tattooing is just the realistic, the photorealism. It's unbelievable how good these artists are nowadays. And, how many artists there are, how many tattoo shops there are. Back when I opened, it was myself and one other tattoo shop in the whole Detroit area. Now in the Detroit area, there's probably 100 plus tattoo shops. So it's been real good for me. I've got to ride the wave, seeing it grow. Almost 20 years ago, I opened a supply company, Eternal Ink. I started making my own ink, Eternal Ink, and it's been phenomenal. I'm the largest ink manufacturer probably in the tattoo industry, probably in the world. My inks are sold. I distribute Eternal Ink all over the world. It's been phenomenal. We have a warehouse here in Brighton where we employ 40 plus people at the warehouse. So the whole tattoo industry for me has been a blessing.
Well, Terry, we thank you very much for being with us today. Anything else you'd like us to know before we let you go?
No, man, just thank everybody for coming to Eternal. Everybody stay safe. You guys are past this pandemic. Hopefully we can get back to what we
All right, it appears that we have lost connection with Terry's audio, but we appreciate having him on. Terry Welker from Eternal Tattoos, the owner of Eternal Tattoos and Eternal Ink. Very interesting interview with him today, Ronnie, as artists of all kinds have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. That includes tattoo artists, and there's so much detail that goes into that before you're even putting ink to body, before you're even putting the tattoo on somebody's body. There's so much artistry that goes on behind the scenes. They have to be drawers, they have to be painters, they have to have visual minds and fit the vision of people who want to have these, in many cases, very meaningful works of art on their body that connect them to somebody or something or some memory or some idea that is close to their hearts. And during the pandemic, businesses like tattoo shops, like other personal care services, like salons and spas, greatly impacted by the shutdowns. And now they're back. They're doing well. They're surviving and they're advancing despite the pandemic. And it's good to see that businesses and business people like Terry, who have always been doing fantastic work, are continuing to be able to do that and provide jobs for people in our communities during the pandemic and afterward.
I think some of these reality shows that came out following tattoo artists also help bring tattoos into the mainstream. So it is not such that stigma attached to people who have tattoos and visible tattoos, because before it would be, if you got a tattoo, you put it on a place of your body you didn't want people to see. Some businesses, if you had them on your arms, you would have to wear long sleeves, or you could not have them in a place that, that maybe other people could see. So you would have to be careful about where you had your tattoos. But now they're widely accepted in pretty much every community. And so now it's this emerging trend that is coming up where more and more people are getting them. Younger people are getting them as well. The most important thing with getting a tattoo is obviously you need to go to a reputable business such as Eternal Tattoos, because there is the risk of getting various diseases. Hepatitis has been a really big thing from some of these illegal tattoo parties that kids will often have, where they'll just have a tattoo artist that's not properly trained come in and maybe do a party with 8 to 10 people, and then they undercut the cost. You want to make sure, if you are doing it, go to a legitimate place where they do have the safety precautions in place. Now more so than ever, as he was saying, all of his artists are trained in that arena, so they're already aware of the contagious viruses and diseases that can be passed, and take those precautions.
And it does seem too like Terry and his team and he made an emphasis of that during that interview, that they've already put safety measures in place even before the pandemic to prevent those kinds of ailments that you had mentioned, and the training in place for the staff. And then also said that during this, with the individual rooms and for people to be getting tattooed, that they are doing what they need to do to keep those rooms individual, to clean them individually after each time, and to be safe so that people can continue to express themselves through this art, both the artists and those who are paying them to put this art on their bodies are able to do so in as safe of a matter as possible. And it's like you said, because it's becoming a lot less taboo, these tattoos, because they're expressions of who people are, and some people express themselves through art, and some people express themselves through body art, and other people express themselves through different mediums. And it's good to see that they're still able to do that, but do so in a safe manner during a pandemic. So we thank Terry Welker for being with us from Eternal Tattoos, and appreciate, of course, all of our guests with us each and every day on the Oakland County Megacast. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll transition from art to sports, and we'll talk about the Big Ten. Are they going to cancel the football season? What's going to happen with our college football? That and more coming up. We'll speak to Woody Woodriffe from Fox 2 Sports. Coming up after the break, you're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship TV and radio stations on the Oakland County Megacast network of television, radio, and other media outlets. In addition, today we're, as always, on 88.1 WBFH, the Biff, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, and today on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District via Facebook Live, as we continue to bring the latest information about COVID-19 and other top stories related to the virus and all throughout the local area, including the big news that came out of the local area and the region yesterday regarding college football. The Big Ten allegedly had voted to cancel the season by a 12-2 vote. That was later then denied by members of the Big Ten, who are now expected to be meeting really as we speak. They were expected to meet this morning at 10:30 to further discuss the details of the season. We're pleased to be joined now to get a little more detail and insight into that from Fox 2 sports anchor Woody Woodriffe once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Woody, thank you for being with us today.
No problem, Tyler. How are you? Hi, Ronnie.
Doing well. How are you?
Great.
Wonderful. So Woody, the Big Ten considering canceling their football season. Of course, we saw last week the MAC, which features colleges such as Central Michigan, canceling their season. Where is the Big Ten at right now? Do you believe that they are going to cancel all fall sports, including football, after what went down on Monday this week?
Well, right now, the Big Ten is in disarray because, as you mentioned earlier, there was a rumor that that there was a 12-2 vote to cancel the season, and then there was meetings going on. As you mentioned, there's a meeting going on right now. I personally believe that they will be forced to cancel the season. I don't see how anyone can play. You have to leave this up to the medical experts, and that's also what's happening in the Pac-12. They are also meeting today, and they're leaving it up to the medical experts. And right now, everybody's saying, you can't play football in college. Because let's be honest, who is advocating for the players? You still have to talk to their parents about, wanting to come in. This is not the pros. So I don't see how you can have this and let it go on this year with any kind of fall sport. Let's be honest.
Woody Woodriffe with us from Fox 2 Sports on the Oakland County Megacast. And after the news did break earlier on the day yesterday about that alleged 12-2 vote, we had immediate pushback from a lot of people, including players and locally coaches such as Michigan's football coach Jim Harbaugh, who had put out an entire note on social media about the protocols in place at the University of Michigan, where they have not had any issues so far with COVID-19. Yeah. What's your thoughts on what could happen if the Big Ten does cancel the season, knowing that there are other conferences such as the SEC who are openly inviting teams to join their conference should seasons be canceled by other conferences?
Tyler, I heard that and I laughed out loud because let's be honest, okay? It would cost hundreds of millions of dollars for a team, let's say a team in the Big Ten, to leave the conference for 1 year, and we don't even know if they're going to play a season. That is ridiculous. So I'm not even going to consider that kind of consideration for college football. What I think needs to happen is everybody needs to just take a step back and not play. I mean, I understand. You're hearing Jim Harbaugh, you're hearing James Franklin, you're hearing a lot of the other big guys come out and say that they should play. But you notice that these are guys who, really don't have any university president over them saying, hey, hold on. I mean, it's not like I'm going to see, somebody like Ward Manuel come up to Jim Harbaugh and say, hey, tone that down a little bit. That's not happening. So, yeah, you can say that. It's a good game. It sounds good to the fan base and all that kind of stuff, but they are not going to play. We've seen this before in the NCAA basketball tournament, okay? It was one team pulling out, then it was a conference pulling out, then the tournament was canceled, right? We saw this already. So what are we seeing now? We're seeing the MAC pull out. We're going to see the Pac-12 and the Big Ten probably pull out, and then you're talking about these Power Five maybe getting together to do something. No, it's not going to happen, Tyler. I don't think so at all.
What about the argument that these students are still going to be on college campus, still exposed to COVID-19, so why not let them play, but maybe even put them in somewhat of a bubble of their own and maybe let them go to classes remotely?
Ronnie, part of that is legitimate because I would say that some players are probably better in the bubble in colleges as opposed to being, back at home and, doing whatever they're doing back in their own neighborhoods. So at least that way you could control it because the football team would be separated or, the team would be separated from the regular population on the campus. But I don't know how this is, supposed to work. It's still a fluid situation. There's protocols at certain schools that are not the same at other schools. So until there's something uniform, I don't see how this can happen. I just don't.
Woody Woodriffe with us. He is a sports anchor at Fox 2 Detroit with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And another proposal that's been thrown out there, not an official proposal, but speculation, has been the potential of moving the football season to the spring. I personally think that that's just a ridiculous idea altogether, and it's not going to happen. It interferes with NFL draft season. You're going to lose a lot of those key players that are the attraction to a lot of these Power 5 teams and these major top 25 teams as well. Do you believe that there is any chance that, even if that is the case, where these players wouldn't be playing because they're pursuing the draft, that potentially the NCAA could say, we're going to delay the season and move it to the spring?
Well, I think that the two schools of thought right now are either canceling the season entirely or waiting until September 26th. I don't know why that date is out there, but that's maybe the two schools of thought that are going forward. And with those two schools of thought, there's only really one way to go, and that's not to play. But to get back to your question, Tyler, I mean, yes, this is a fluid situation. Yes, this is something where people want to play. People want to go out. I've seen players come out and say that, hey, we want to go out and play. But until there's some kind of agreement or whatever, I mean, let's be honest, this could start some kind of players union in college, which would perhaps upset the entire framework of what college football is. The amateurism and everything would go out of it. And then you have revenue sharing and all other kinds of things that you have in the NFL. So, I don't know if everybody wants this kind of thing, but it's out there and it could be coming in the longer this thing goes, as guys want to play. Guys may just organize anyway, just to have the conditions of playing uniform all the way through. So we'll see what happens.
On a local level, with the NCAA potentially going to have Power 5 conferences canceling their season as soon as today, we're still just a couple weeks out from a Thursday. It's exactly 2 weeks out from the beginning of the high school football season. High school sports are already having their fall practices. Those began officially on August 10th for football. Contact allowed practices begin on August 17th. Do you believe that the MHSAA is going to be close behind in making a decision potentially to move or cancel many or all of the moderate to high risk fall sports?
I think they may have to. I mean, let's play this out, okay? Let's say that you play and some high school kids catch COVID-19, and then there's long-term effects here and those kinds of things. Nobody wants to be on the side that said, oh, you know what, those guys went and played anyway. No. Let's err on the side of caution here. And if that means, hey, taking a step back and just putting everything on hold, let's do that, because I don't want to be the guy to be reporting that, hey, 14, kids on a team, have COVID-19 and now, they're shutting this down, they're shutting that down, seasons are going out. No, I don't think that's going to happen either. Now, I give everyone credit because since there is no, real plan in place to stop or go, everyone is continuing as they are going to go. I mean, practices are still happening and things like that. They're trying to be as safe as possible. But again, I don't see how that happens in a contact sport like football. Let's just take the offensive and defensive lines. Every play is contact. So how do you distance that? How do you protect against that? Are masks all of a sudden being made inside helmets? I have not heard of that construction happening. I mean, the NCAA is starting just today to look at things in the future where they should have been looking, months ago. So it's a jumble right now, and to pull out one line of thinking that, hey, maybe high school football could do it or maybe college football could do it, I don't see either one. Pros are different. The pro game is different because they have a players union and they can bargain this stuff and they can talk about the steps that they want to take in order to play again, and then you can take that risk. But for kids and college kids, I can't see that.
How much of this is about the money? Because these programs make a ton of cash for these schools.
Ronnie, you know what? That's a great question, because I was hearing a report the other day about Wisconsin, and if they don't play college football, they could lose $100 million. Now, that tells me what? That tells me college football brings in a lot of money. It also tells me that if you do play college football, then you're only in it for the money. So then the hypocrisy comes out. Are students really students, or are they athletes? It may have to be athlete-student instead of student-athlete if you continue to go this way. And then that opens the door to forming the unions. And I don't know if the universities really want to see that come up anytime soon, because it would change the framework of how they do business.
Woody Woodriffe with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is a sports anchor at Fox 2 Detroit, and you can find him there, Channel 2, all throughout the local Metro Detroit area. Woody, moving on to the NFL, they're still continuing forward, planning for beginning their season next month, just a little over a month away. We have seen some positive tests in the league and some false positive tests even as locally as Detroit, most notably with quarterback Matt Stafford of the Detroit Lions. Where do you see the progress going, and what are you hearing as of now in terms of the NFL's decision-making regarding the start of their season?
The NFL, they seem to have taken it up a notch and really locked down on distancing and, protocols in place to make sure that at least the team, while it's there, is safe and everyone's healthy. I mean, you mentioned Matthew Stafford getting that false positive. I mean, that also tells you that there are questions in the testing itself. And, let's be honest, if that happened on a Friday, Matthew Stafford probably would have missed that game on Sunday, and then you get a false positive. Oh boy, that would start a whole ball of wax going downhill. So let's just stay away from that. But right now, guys are going into a quarantine for like 14 days. If they test positive, they're on the NFL's COVID-19 reserve list. And once they get through that, then they can come off it and become active again with the teams. So the Lions had 8 guys on there. I believe 4 or 5 have come off. The last guys coming off was T.J. Hawkinson and Amani Oruwariye, the cornerback. So the Lions are getting healthier, we could say, as training camp gets set to kick into the actual physical part of it, because since a couple of weeks ago, it's been virtual, and Matt Patricia and his coaching staff have been dealing with players and Zoom calls and doing it that way. But Tyler and Ronnie, as we all know, football is a physical game, and practices come, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, until guys get together. I mean, guys are in the building and they're doing strength and conditioning things, but it's easy to distance with that. Once it comes to the actual playing, let's see what happens. Hopefully everyone has maintained the protocols when they're away from the building, and they can stay safe that way.
Will there be fans in the seats when the Lions have their season opener?
There was a lot of talk about that, but again, that's something that I don't see how they can have fans in the seats. There are sports right now that do have fans in the seats, most notably overseas and some of the soccer leagues and things like that. But I think they have that because they really took some serious control steps early to put guys in bubbles and make sure that countries were locked down so that fans and just spectators would be okay as well. Here in this country, it's so different from state to state. There's different rules. People don't want to wear a mask here. People want to wear a mask there. So there's been no blanket statement to say, hey, everybody do this. So it's been up to different states. So that means that you're going to have different rules. And I don't see how, different rules can lead to a same result.
Woody, lastly, the Detroit Tigers are off to a really hot start in Major League Baseball, 9-5. They're half game back from the Minnesota Twins at the top of the AL Central. Many days we've woken up shocked. The Detroit Tigers are at the top of the American League Central. They're surging right now. They're playing great. They're playing great ball. Over the weekend, they had a game where they scored 17 runs, and they had a game where they had almost four consecutive home runs against Pittsburgh. Do you believe that the Tigers have the ability to keep this going long term throughout this shortened season and potentially make a playoff run playing the ball that they're playing?
Anything's possible in a 60-game sprint. If you get hot, you don't have to finish, 59-1. All you really have to do is kind of be maybe 26, 27, 28 wins would get you into the playoff field, an expanded playoff field. So the Tigers could do it. I mean, if they continue to play like this, and you know what, I have to give them a lot of credit because so far their COVID-19 protocols have worked perfectly. The Tigers have had no real, cases or players having to come out or anything like that, unlike the Marlins and the Cardinals and other teams where it's like doubleheader city through the rest of the 60-game schedule for those teams. So I like what the Tigers are doing. I'm also enjoying what the bullpen is doing, even picking up some of those starters because Matt Boyd has been a bit shaky to start with. We did see Michael Fulmer and Daniel Norris both come back and pitch very well the other night. So yeah, Tyler, I'm excited about the Tigers, and to see them go into Pittsburgh, that they did what they had to do in Pittsburgh. Let's be honest. Coming into that series, the Pirates were 3-10. Okay, so yeah, if the Tigers had gone in there and say lost 3, it would have looked terrible. But you go in there, you beat up on a bad team, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you come back. I believe they're playing the White Sox now. So yeah, the Tigers looking really good right now. Let's see this continue because Ron Gardenhire is a good guy, and I like to see positive things happen for him. He's a great class act.
He is. Excellent manager. The Tigers with some key games in the Central Division coming up against the Chicago White Sox. Woody, anything else for us today?
They also play the Cleveland Indians after that. I think with a couple of games squeezed in against the Cardinals, possibly. I don't know how the schedule is going to work. And that's another thing. The scheduling, I hope it doesn't come back to, bite a lot of these teams at the end because with 7-inning doubleheaders, you'll be having to play all the time. I enjoy what the NHL and the NBA are doing because their bubbles seem to be working and guys are, staying safe. The NHL specifically, I don't think there's been one positive test in the NHL lately. I have to check that to be sure, but I have not heard anything about that. And then, of course, they're back to Stanley Cup hockey and teams are being eliminated in the qualifying round. So it's good to see that, and it's also good to see basketball as well, and the Tigers, of course. So I'm happy about everything, but college and high school sports, Tyler and Ronnie, again, I don't think we're going to see it.
Woody, just before we let you go, the last time we had you on, we didn't have enough time. It was at the end of the show to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. Now, the New York Rangers yesterday get the #1 overall pick. They're going to take Patrick Ewing. They're going to take Patrick Ewing in the draft. The Red Wings, of course, worst record in the league, and they end up with the 4th overall pick. Your thoughts on the NHL draft lottery and the results from yesterday?
Well, the Red Wings still got screwed back at the draft lottery. Okay, so I'm still smarting about that. So, to have a team that was basically in the playoffs be able to pick first is just unconscionable. And, if one of these good playoff teams like a Pittsburgh or even the Rangers or something like that, go at #1 and take Alexis Lafreniere, the hands-down favorite #1 pick from Canada, it's just going to be so bad. It's just going to be so bad. I know the Red Wings pick 4th, and yes, there will be a quality player there at 4th for Steve Yzerman to select, but, oh, come on. It was all set up for Detroit. You mentioned it. They had the worst record in the league. They had the highest chance, but the way this quirky, draft lottery thing works out, of course it was going to be something bizarre because the draft lottery was bizarre. How could you combine, 2 teams' chances? I just don't even want to get into that. It's just terrible. But let's see if the Red Wings can continue this rebuild and keep going full steam ahead because there will be quality guy there at #4.
Woody, appreciate having you on with us.
Oh, it's not a problem. I'm happy to be here. You guys have a great day.
You as well. Woody Woodriffe, Fox 2 sports anchor with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Still tons of information coming in about sports in our local area and throughout the United States as we continue to battle COVID-19. It's having an impact, of course, immediately on NCAA football. If we have any news for that from that angle during the live show, we will make sure to cut in and give you that information. They are meeting. The Big Ten was expected to meet this morning beginning at 10:30, so that meeting is allegedly in progress as we speak regarding canceling that season. The Detroit Tigers having a great year. The Detroit Red Wings, of course, got jobbed in the NHL draft lottery. There's tons of things going on in Detroit sports and national sports, and COVID-19 is certainly having an impact. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with Erica Jones, who's out at a local gym, which is open. That coming up next on the Oakland County Megacast. You're watching and listening to us on our family of TV and radio stations, including 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonay Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside Ronnie Dahl. You're watching us on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and Civic Center TV, both those TV stations, on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In addition, we're on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM, live streaming online on lakesfm.com, and on 88.1 WBFH. You can get their live stream, of course, also on WBFH.FM. Today, we're also broadcasting on Facebook via Facebook Live, and we appreciate the patronage of the West Bloomfield School District joining us on the program. We'll talk to Dr. Hill in just a little bit about the West Bloomfield School District's continued planning for this fall semester. That and more coming up on the Oakland County Megacast as we continue to bring you the latest news and information from around the local area about COVID-19 and other top stories. We have Erica Jones out in the field today to report on one local business that is not necessarily permitted to be open, but is still open right now. Erica, what's going on out in the field?
Hi, so as we know, the governor has yet to give gyms the green light to open. Personal training facilities are open, but gyms are not allowed to be. So I'm here at Powerhouse Gym on Haggerty and Pontiac Trail, where they, contrary to the governor's order, actually are open. And I was able to go inside and speak with management about how they're managing to do this safely. And what they told me is that they're just asking everyone to wear a mask when they come in and out of the gym, which really is not anything different because that is already the state order. There is social distancing inside of the gym. They actually did not have specific machines blocked off, which I thought was interesting. I was definitely expecting to see more caution tape on the machines, and they didn't have that, but they do have extended cleaning staff, and their hours are limited. They're normally open 24 hours, but they're not right now. And they told me their legal team from Powerhouse Gym has instructed them to stay open. I asked if they've had issues with government, and they said no, they have not had any issues. So they are remaining open, and they are still signing up new members. So if you would like to join Powerhouse Gym during this time, you are able to. So very interesting angle that they are remaining open, and it really did not seem like they were having issues with the government at all. So I'm not totally sure if that's just what they want the public to believe or if they really are having issues, but that is the information they gave me this morning when I went in, and they were glad to share information with me.
Well, Erica, thank you for that report. Erica Jones out in the field. We do have conflicting information, though. We on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, there was an article that we have posted on there from the West Bloomfield Beacon about this particular gym. They have received requests from West Bloomfield Township and from Oakland County to shut down. That is currently in process of being forwarded to the Attorney General's office. So that's still a continuing situation here. And that's not the only gym in the local area. There are many of that variety of Powerhouse Gym varieties, but also other gyms that are defying state orders incurring fines from the local health departments and from local governments, but that's not deterring them because there aren't criminal charges. They aren't losing their business necessarily, and they're not losing their business license. So they're incurring those fines while still getting the dollars coming in from membership fees, personal training services, other services, and so on, and making a decent enough profit to continue their business. That being said, a real dangerous precedent being set by these gyms that are defying these orders, despite the governor's executive orders being in place and requests from local municipalities and health departments.
I think the fallout from this has yet to be seen. How far is this going to go? At the end of the day, the gyms do need to pay their bills. They have received some assistance, but not all of them, and it's definitely not enough to carry them month in and month out. And as we know, there was a lawsuit that was filed. And at first, one judge did rule that they were going to be able to reopen in June. They were all set to reopen. And then at the last minute, it got appealed. And then the judge ruled, no, they need to stay closed. So it's continuing through the appeal process. But as we are seeing, there are some gyms that are continuing to remain open because a lot of people do believe there is a health benefit behind going to the gym. And one of the things with COVID-19 is if you have underlying health issues, then the symptoms are much more serious than if you are in shape and you are a healthy person. So there's arguments on both sides of this, but as you said, there are some local municipalities who are citing these gyms for being open. Other gyms are still trying to do things safely. A lot of times they'll offer classes outside in the parking lot.
Yeah, and there are ways that gyms are permitted to be open and continue to provide services without having them being inside the gym and with people exchanging use of multiple machines and other pieces of equipment. So those provisions are in place. They are able to continue business in some way, shape, and form. Many defying those abilities and taking matters into their own hands to continue on their business, which maybe we haven't seen the fallout from just yet, but I'm sure down the line we will. In the Attorney General's office, with the emphasis on state departments putting more into enforcement of the governor's orders, we may see a lot more of these gyms get a lot harder hit than they have by the local municipalities and health departments by Attorney General Dana Nessel's office in the near future. Well, as we continue to battle COVID-19, we're approaching another season of disease that affects people each and every year, and that is flu. And we're pleased to be joined now by Zachary Yaksich. He is the president and executive director of Alana's Foundation, which is an organization that is helping to spread the word about why you need to get yourself protected from the flu each and every year. We're pleased to be joined now, of course, by Zach Yaksich on the Oakland County Megacast. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate having you on. How are you, and how's everybody with Alana's Foundation doing?
Oh, good. We're busy. We're getting ready. As you said, the season's approaching very fast, and it's going to be a busy season. So we're busy, but we're all things are positive. So,
Zachary, for those that are not familiar with Alana's Foundation, what does your organization do, and what is its background?
The organization was founded in memory of my daughter, Alana, who was 5 years old. When she was 5 years old, in 2003, she passed away due to complications from the flu. And so after that, the tragedy happened, and through the grieving process, at that time I had no idea that people could actually die from the flu. My daughter wasn't vaccinated from the flu because her pediatrician never recommended it. She actually didn't fall within the CDC guidelines. So at that time, I made it a decision to be an advocate for educating people about how dangerous the flu is and how important it is to get a annual flu vaccine so that we could prevent this tragedy from happening to other families. So we do that in various ways. We do that through speaking engagements, such as today. I'm often invited to talk the various radio, TV stations, newspapers, schools, churches, community centers, and so forth. And then most importantly, we try to make the vaccine convenient and affordable for people to receive. So we set up clinics around the tri-state area, again, in schools, churches, community centers, and so forth, so that it's convenient for people to get to. And we provide funding for those who don't have insurance that would otherwise pay for it, so that we try to remove all the barriers or roadblocks from getting the vaccine. So
our condolences on the loss of your daughter, but what a gift you're giving to the community by honoring her and educating others. Can you talk a little bit about COVID-19, and do you think that's going to overshadow some of the work in your message, or do you think it will help fuel what you are doing?
Actually, ironically, if there is any silver lining with COVID-19, I think it's that it's brought awareness to the need and importance for vaccines, and it's brought to light, I'm sure everybody's heard, especially as of late, people talking about, the flu season coming up and how important it is to get your flu shot this year. So I don't think that it's going to overshadow what we're doing. COVID's a very serious illness, and like I said, it's brought to light the fact that we need a vaccine. Everybody's waiting and clamoring to develop a vaccine for COVID. So it's brought attention to that. It's because it's in the media every day, and the talk is around, hey, the flu season's coming. We have a vaccine for the flu. So go out and get your flu vaccine, prevent yourself from getting the flu, prevent any tragedies that may occur from the flu, and help control our health system so that we don't overwhelm the health system with people entering it who have complications from COVID and the flu. So, like I said, I think if there's any silver lining, it's almost been to help bring light to the need for flu vaccines.
Zachary Yaksich with us. He is the president and executive director of Alana's Foundation with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Zachary, with the symptoms of COVID-19 so much being similar in many cases to the symptoms of flu, does that make this year's vaccine, getting a vaccine for this year's strain of influenza, that much more important? So people maybe are, if they are going into work and they are feeling, and they maybe do feel those symptoms down the road, that they aren't necessarily taking resources that are being used to test for COVID-19, but rather putting them, and at the same time putting themselves in a position where if they think it's COVID-19 and it's not COVID-19 and it's the flu, where they could be in a position of being harmed by the virus. Does that make this even more important this year to get that vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important every year. As I said in the previous statement, it's more important this year than ever, just so that we don't overwhelm the health system, and to try to actually help get a grasp on actually the effects of COVID, what is COVID and what is actually the flu or other illnesses, minor illnesses. So I think it's important that people get it. And as always, if you're feeling ill, whether you think you have COVID or the flu or not, it's important that we all use some common sense and stay home from work, or whatever activities you may be, or social gatherings, so that we don't spread whatever we have, potentially spread it to others.
So I know your organization is ran solely by volunteers. You rely on donations. How has fundraising been for your organization during this time? And if people want to help, how can they help?
Yeah, fundraising is a challenge. You're right. We are a 100% volunteer. Our funding is completely on donations. We usually hold one annual fundraiser every year, and it's actually the first week of August. And because of COVID and the restrictions on social gathering, we had to cancel that. So donations and funding are a little bit tight this year. We actually had a virtual fundraiser, if you will, which is basically we sent out a virtual invitation to previous donors and supporters, gave them an update on the foundation, and asked them to to think of Alana's Foundation when they give to charities this year, which so it is a challenge. It's it's created some restrictions on them. So hopefully we've gotten some responses, positive responses, and hopefully we can work through this, and get things back to normal where we can fundraise again. But on that note, I will humbly ask your listeners to keep Alana's Foundation in mind at your end of year giving as one of your charities of choice. And you can, if you choose to help out, you can simply go to www.alanasfoundation.org, and we have a donate page there, and anything you can give, as little or large, is appreciated.
Zachary Yaksich with us. He's the president and executive director of Alana's Foundation. And Zachary, you mentioned previously in the interview that your organization and its volunteers do a lot of work to advocate for the flu and provide even flu shots in the tri-state area. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues on, and as we're approaching the fall season and the flu season oncoming, what does your organization do at that point to continue to provide those services in the tri-state area and go out to these community centers and go out to these local events and so on and so forth, while also maintaining the safety of the people that you're helping to treat and of those that are volunteering for your organization?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very good question, and we've had to be a little bit creative and flexible, and we continue to be flexible. But most of, in the past, all of the clinics that we've held have been inside of buildings, facilities, schools, churches, and so forth. And now with the COVID restrictions, we are planning on doing drive-through vaccination clinics where you'll pull up in your vehicle, we'll have it organized, and you'll pre-register online. We have online consent forms, and you just pull up, give your name, the nurses will pull up your information and give you your shot right there in the car. So it's we're going to learn a little bit. We think we've spent the last couple of weeks trying to think of all the possibilities that we could encounter, and I'm sure that we're going to have to make some changes along the way. But that's a very good question. They're going to be drive-through.
But one other thing was Alana's Dream Project. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Alana's Dream Project. My daughters loved rainbows and she loved butterflies, but when she became ill, it was right around, it was in February. So in school, she was doing projects centered around Martin Luther King, and I had a dream. So she always talked about rainbows, and one of the last projects she did was I have a dream that there'd be rainbows all around the world. So rainbows are obviously special to anybody that knows Alana, special to our family, and ironically, we see rainbows all the time, or maybe we just notice them more and appreciate them more, but we see them on bright sunny days sometimes. So came up with the idea to try to ask people from around the world, if you see a rainbow, send it in to us. And at some point, I want to try to gather, whether I keep it on the website or put something in print, but just show rainbows and show Alana that there are rainbows around the world, and, let her dream come true.
Zachary Yaksich with us, the president and executive director of Alana's Foundation, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Zachary, just another couple minutes with you. As parents are preparing to send their kids back to school, we know that in the West Bloomfield area, the K through 8 education is going to be in person and virtual hybrid, and then 8 and 9 through 12 will be entirely online. But it's even more emphasis now on making sure your kids are immunized for diseases such as the yearly flu as they're heading back into school. What lasting advice or plea do you have to give to parents as they're approaching sending their kids back to school in the fall as the semester begins, with flu season also beginning during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I would urge them, one, when you send your kids back, obviously pay attention to all the social, the restrictions, social distancing to help protect against COVID. But like I said before, we can only protect ourselves from COVID by wearing a mask and social distancing and so forth. We can protect ourselves from the flu by simply getting a flu shot. It's not 100% guaranteed, but it is some protection. And the more people that get it, like's been talked about in the media, it creates herd immunity. So this is a year, it's more important than ever to get yourself a flu shot. And there's really not a reason not to get it. So it's at the doctor's offices, it's at the pharmacies. We have clinics set up around the local area here. You can go on our website and find those clinics as well. So I just would encourage you to get your children and the entire family vaccinated. We have the vaccine. Get yourself vaccinated, protect yourselves, and to help protect the community.
Well, Zachary, we thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. Zachary Yaksich from Alana's Foundation with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's their president and executive director. We see them a lot throughout our community in normal times when we're doing events in the fall, particularly events such as the West Bloomfield Fire Department's open house. They're always there providing information, providing flu shots, and especially in the times that we're in now where we are so much more aware of the spread of disease, of the ailments that can be associated with viruses, all that more important now to stay ahead of common diseases such as influenza.
It's a beautiful way to remember his daughter is by saving lives of other people. 34,000 people died of the flu last year. So I think we just think, oh, it's the flu. I mean, there were over 35 million cases of the flu, and we don't take it seriously enough. And we think it only is for maybe older people, or we don't talk about people dying from the flu. We know it happens, but we don't talk about it. And we definitely don't talk about it enough, knowing that it could impact young kids. She was 5 years old. So a gift that he's given the community to try to raise awareness and let people know that the flu does kill as well. And like he said, COVID-19 is really hopefully going to raise awareness around all cases of the flu so that people can make a decision about whether or not they want to get vaccinated.
And of course, as Zachary said in his interview, if you want to find more information about Alana's Foundation, more information about the flu and why it's so important to get your flu shot, especially for your young kids even as well, you can find that information at alanasfoundation.org. We appreciate having Zachary on to talk to us about his organization and about getting your flu shots. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go over the latest headlines, and then we'll talk with Dr. Gerald Hill from the West Bloomfield School District. That coming up and more. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV, radio, and other media outlets. Ronnie and I will return after this.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe with Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Those, of course, are our flagship TV and radio stations on the Oakland County Megacast network of community television, radio, and online outlets. In addition, as always, today we are on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Both of our TV channels, TV stations can be found on Channel 15 on Comcast and on AT&T Channel 99 under their government public access and education community television guides. AT&T Channel 99, Comcast Channel 15. In addition, we're on the web, civiccentertv.com. You click on our Watch Live link and you can watch us live in high definition Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon for our live shows. You can also see us on civiccentertv.com/megacast for on-demand full episodes, full interviews, and short clips. So whether you want to see the entire interview and you weren't able to listen or watch during the live show, you want to see just specific interviews, you really wanted to hear from Zachary Yaksich from Alana's Foundation, and you just happen to tune in with a minute left, you'll be able to see that full interview later on in the day. Or if you only have a set amount of time, you want to see the most important clips from each interview each and every day, you can do that by clicking on our Watch Short Clips link on civiccentertv.com/megacast. In addition, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we have links to reputable resources that are updated constantly from the federal, state, and local level about COVID-19, from the Centers for Disease Control, of course, at the federal level, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities. These are direct links to their COVID-19 pages. So you live in Sylvan Lake, you live in the prettiest little city in the state of Michigan, gives you a direct link to their website, to their homepage at sylvanlake.org. That directly from our website. Maybe you live in the city of Troy and you want to get more information on COVID-19 from the city of Troy. Click on Troy on our civiccentertv.com/coronavirus link, and you'll be taken directly to the page from the city of Troy regarding COVID-19, including their response to the virus, the highlights of the city's response, what they're doing to clean and disinfect city resources, and more. You can find that information on the City of Troy and other municipalities' direct COVID-19 information websites, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. You won't have to dig around for all that information or dig around for the top stories regarding COVID-19 and other information in the local area each and every day. Today's top story: bowling centers file a lawsuit demanding to reopen. The Bowling Centers Association of Michigan is taking a strike at Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Members say their industry is suffering a huge loss after being ordered to be closed in March. A quote, "If we can't open on September 1 or sometime very shortly thereafter, it is going to be very difficult for a lot of us in our industry to stay afloat," said Michael Scherer, the president of the Bowling Centers of Michigan. The organization represents 165 bowling alleys across the state of Michigan and are, of course, wanting to reopen their bowling alleys as soon as is possible. And Ronnie, this continues on as another example of businesses that are attempting to go the route of a lawsuit to finally be able to reopen as Governor Gretchen Whitmer continues to keep us in phase 4 of the Michigan Safe Start plan.
I think for a lot of these businesses, when they saw casinos be allowed to reopen, that was kind of the last straw. And their argument was, well, if these places can reopen, into which you are touching a lot of the same items, the machines, this, that, and the other, then they should be allowed to reopen as well. The bowling alleys, you're 5 months into this. And maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, but now this is a matter of them really surviving economically and being able to keep the doors open. Or are they just is this industry going to go away? And for some of these bowling alleys, they're not small. They're actually very, some of them are large buildings, and maybe they could operate safely at maybe 25, 50% capacity. So we're going to see if this actually works. So we've seen other industries, the gym industry, the movie theater industry, try this route as well. And in both cases, the judge did rule that Governor Whitmer's executive order stands and allowing them to remain closed.
Yeah, more information on that will, of course, be coming very soon as this battle continues on. More stories at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Other big news from today, the Big Ten college football season is in jeopardy. Big Ten is expected to make another decision on its college football season today, but the impact of it could vary widely as league presidents are considering pushing back the start of the season to September 26th or postponing it until the spring, a conference source told ESPN. The presidents are expected to meet today, and they were expected to begin meeting earlier on this morning, although they are considering becoming the first Power 5 conference to postpone all fall sports. The majority of their athletic directors aren't ready yet to pull the plug. While many likely options seem to be pushing back the start of the season or postponing it until the spring, it's certainly possible that they wind up somewhere in between, postponing it for a few weeks out, maybe a couple months out. We don't know just yet. More information will be coming on that very soon. And Ronnie, this is definitely affecting a lot of college athletes, particularly in the sport of football is what's most notable because that's such a cash cow for these universities and these colleges. But that also would have a big effect on other smaller scale sports, less major sports across the board as well, that a lot of their funding also comes from football. So a lot being considered here on top of just the general and most important factor, which is the safety of the players and the people of the university.
There is an argument that these students are still going to be on campus. So would they not be safer if you kept them in somewhat of a bubble during the football season? And also, testing is going on at the larger universities. They do have the resources to be able to test the players and the staff more frequently than maybe some of these smaller universities. But if your students are, if the athletes are already going to be on campus, can you not put them in somewhat of a bubble like they are doing in the NBA, which is actually working, and keep them safe and still play football? That's kind of the counter argument to this. So hopefully by the end of the day, we'll see if we get a clear answer on this.
Yeah, that decision, of course, yesterday there was allegedly a vote of 12-2 with the University of Iowa and the University of Nebraska voting against canceling the season. That was then negated later on by many members of the Big Ten who said that vote never happened, and that's actually happening today potentially. So we'll keep you updated on that as news comes in. That decision is expected to be made officially by the Big Ten at some point today. Lastly, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, Governor Whitmer vetoes a bill to give healthcare workers legal immunity during the state of emergency. The legislation, Senate Bill 899, would have granted healthcare providers and facilities immunity from civil or criminal lawsuits for injury or death during the state of emergency, unless they engaged in criminal misconduct or intentionally harmed a patient. The bill would have also retroactively applied immunity to healthcare workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, which started on March 10th. In her veto letter, Governor Whitmer acknowledged her action to invoke liability protections to certain healthcare providers at one point in the COVID-19 pandemic as new cases were surging. But she took issue with Senate Bill 899 automatically extending immunity to healthcare providers and facilities anytime in a state of emergency without consideration for whether such measure was necessary. So that another continued battle going on, Ronnie, from the medical side as medical officials and workers on the front lines concerned about liability in treating COVID-19, which is a novel virus that we're continuing to learn more information on with time sometimes negating previous information, and these healthcare workers wanting to make sure that no matter what they do, as long as they're putting forth their best effort with the knowledge that they have at the moment, that they are not in any case liable if there are complications that happen while they're trying to do their best.
We're seeing legislation also be brought forth not just for the healthcare industry, but also for business owners. Could they also get protection during COVID-19? And these are some of the decisions our lawmakers are having to weigh in on as we navigate this pandemic.
More stories like that on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, we have links to trusted resources from the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities regarding COVID-19. Direct links to those COVID-19 pages. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with more. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. Standing by, we have Dr. Gerald Hill from the West Bloomfield School District. Dr. Hill is next. You're listening to the Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe with Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition today, as always, 88.1 WBFH The Biff. And Birmingham Area Municipal Access joins us on the program. And today we are also joined by, as we are each and every day, by a Facebook partner. Today we're on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District, and we're pleased to be joined by our final guest today, the Superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, Dr. Gerald Hill, with us once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Hill, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. How are things going?
Going well over here. How are things going with the West Bloomfield School District?
Never a dull moment these days.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we're approaching the fall semester, just a couple of weeks away from its beginning. The plans in West Bloomfield were modified recently to be with K-8 schools, K-8 students being taught in person and hybrid in cohorts, with some coming in the morning, some in the afternoons on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday is an entirely online day. And then high school students are going to be entirely online. From the top down, what motivated that specific decision? Was it a desire from the parents, or was it an abundance of caution maybe, knowing that the high school is often the most packed a day-to-day of all the schools in the district?
So Tyler, the determining factor was when we look at the governor's My School Return to School roadmap and follow both the required and strongly recommended protocols. The strongly recommended protocols, there were several of those at the high school level that we could not comply with due to the schedule of students, due to the numbers of students. Even if we divided the high school in half, there'd be 1,800 students, it'd be 900 at a time. Actually, we had 300 high school families or students select Lakers online, so it really would have been a matter of about 750 students at any given time in the high school, and we could not develop a schedule or a plan to meet face-to-face due to the social distancing aspect. And the schedules in a high school are a little different. We couldn't establish a cohort group and keep one group of 15 to 18 students together all day because they all have different needs and schedules. So at the high school level, it is going to be remote, with the exception of some self-contained special education type classes. There'll be opportunities for high school students to come into the school and get some individual or small group instruction as well. So, but that is the plan for high school, remote totally. And elementary through middle school is a hybrid model like you described.
So Dr. Hill, what is the plan if a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19?
So we are still developing that plan. We expect to have a couple of nurses assigned from Oakland County and Oakland Schools. They entered a partnership, and those nurses that they've hired, and they're going to place in all of the school districts in Oakland County shortly. And we will be following protocols from the health department, and that our liaison with the health department will be the nurses that we employ. I believe that West Bloomfield School District is getting 2 nurses, and then we will be working with the nurses and the Oakland County Health Department on their protocols. Obviously, there'd be a quarantine. We would, in each of our schools, the principals have identified a room that will be an isolation room should anybody not be feeling well and appear to have some symptoms of COVID-19. In that case, we would be contacting their parents to come and pick the students up, but we would isolate them at school. And then I would imagine it would go into quarantine, testing, and then contact tracing that would be involved. And this would apply to students or any staff members that if they happen to show signs of having COVID-19.
Dr. Gerald Hill with us. He's the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District on the Oakland County Megacast on our family of community television, radio, and other media outlets, including the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District today via Facebook Live. Dr. Hill, you said plans are still in place for the event, still being planned for the event where somebody, either a teacher or student, whatever the case may be, comes down with the coronavirus or feels ill during the school day. Plans across the board for a lot of school districts are still kind of fluid as we're getting closer to the beginning of the school year. There are many that are in place, and there's at least that roadmap there from the state level and even at the school district level about what's going to happen. But as we're approaching that day, are plans still continuing to be modified and changed on the West Bloomfield level, and what should maybe families and students be aware of as we're getting closer to that first day of school?
Sure, they are, and it is a very fluid situation, and we're trying to provide as much information as we know it when we know it. For example, Tyler, last night at the school board meeting, we talked about enrollments within the West Bloomfield School District. We have approximately 5,800 students in our school district. If you take the 1,800 from the high school, that leaves us about 4,000 students in grades K through 8. Of those 4,000 students, a little over 1,000 of the students are going to start the year with our totally online Lakers online program. And so that leaves the 3,000 students left. And so we're looking at cohorting those students right now as we speak. Parents will be communicated within the week which cohort A or B that their student would be scheduled for. An interesting development has been at the middle school level, because so many families selected the online version. We're seriously considering, and will probably consolidate those middle school students that are in the hybrid program into one campus rather than having 2 schools, both Orchard Lake and Abbott, open. Due to the number of students that chose online, we're able to safely and socially distance, etc., house the students in one of the 2 middle schools. And we're going to be housing our face-to-face hybrid model at Abbott Middle School. And that's the most recent change. And it is a change. We're changing our transportation patterns and locations for some of the students that were scheduled to be at Orchard Lake Middle School. And so we're working through those plans right now, and we will be having parent communication sessions to describe how we're accomplishing that.
Well, on the note of moving potentially the middle school hybrid students into one campus at Abbott, potentially in the coming days or weeks as we're approaching the beginning of the school year, let's talk about what's going on the campus of Orchard Lake Middle School right now, where that's also going to be the location of the new West Bloomfield Middle School, and progress on the construction of the new middle school is well underway. Could you give us an update on the progress of West Bloomfield Middle School? When can we expect, even with potential maybe delays due to COVID-19, that middle school will be ready for students?
It will be ready in the fall of 2022. We lost all of our slack, if you will, in the scheduling when we initially went into the state shutdown. But our construction manager and architects are confident that we will be able to open the school on time for the fall of 2022. If you drive by the site, you'll see that much of the masonry work is emerging from the ground, and we are on schedule. The biggest challenge, or the biggest benchmark, is to have it all enclosed by the time winter comes, so that we can continue with the interior work this coming winter. And so we do expect to open the fall of 2022. And we're really excited about that project. It'll be a fantastic school facility for students, staff, and the community.
Dr. Gerald Hill with us. He's the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Hill, it's expected today that the Big Ten will be making a decision on whether or not to forego all sports in the fall for those seasons, including college football. Other conferences, even on the state level, such as the MAC, which includes Central Michigan University and Eastern Michigan University, have decided to forego their sports seasons, including football. The MHSAA still as of now plans to play out the high school sports seasons in the fall as they are right now, and they have not made any indication that any changes are immediately oncoming. But on a school-to-school level, that those changes may still be ahead. What is the West Bloomfield School District's take on fall sports? Will they go on as normal, or is there any chance that the school district may pull sports out of the MHSAA this fall?
So Tyler, we are watching that situation very closely, what the Big Ten and other major conferences are doing. I think one of the local conferences, the MAC, already has suspended all fall or canceled all fall sports. We will follow the MHSAA guidelines, and I would think that they are really closely watching what's happening with the Big Ten, being that Michigan has a prominent presence in the Big Ten conference. It would be a difficult decision from my perspective, for MHSAA to carry on with high school sports in light of a major college conference canceling sports altogether. So it seems to me inevitable that there will be a decision made by the MHSAA, and we will be watching closely for that decision.
Dr. Hill, recently we finally were able to have that rite of passage for the class of 2020, quite possibly the most unique graduating class we'll ever see in West Bloomfield and really in the state of Michigan and all throughout the world, those graduating seniors from high school of this year. The ceremony was expected to be kind of a similar walking ceremony you would see each and every year, albeit with COVID-19 restrictions. The weather did not permit that, and so there was a drive-through graduation. Can you talk to a little bit about that experience and how it felt for the students to finally receive their high school diploma in that way, under these circumstances, in these unprecedented times that we're in?
Yes, Tyler, that was a totally unique event. And I'm going to hand it to the students and their families for exhibiting such resilience in the last minute kind of decisions. We had planned to have a stage set up on the football field and be able to have the students actually physically walk a stage. We had a short ceremony planned and more to mirror what we normally do under graduation. But given the weather, and we had this secondary plan in place, credit to Eric Pace, principal at West Bloomfield High School, and his able assistants. They had a contingency weather plan. And the day went, from my perspective, very well. A lot of appreciation from the families, from the graduates. They were given the opportunity to be presented their diploma in full regalia, photo opportunities for the families. And so it went really well. And we had several expressions of appreciation from the families of the students. And one thing to think about, years from now, when they have a high school reunion, they will have a very unique experience that they will be able to reminisce on. Hopefully at the time they'll be able to party together, if you will, and celebrate together. But this was an important event and we congratulate all of our students for a job well done throughout their careers in West Bloomfield. But it was, as you said, unprecedented and something we hope not to have to repeat again in the near future.
Dr. Hill, I have to say hats off to you and the team over there and trying to navigate how you're going to move forward. And one of the issues really is still busing. How are kids going to get to and from school? Hard to socially distance on a bus. And what is your budget looking like right now?
Okay, I'll get the budget one in a second. The busing is an easier answer. Busing, we are limiting the numbers of where students sit on the bus. And because so many students signed up for Lakers Online, and because we've then divided the other students in half, if you will, all students that were transported on buses will be wearing a face mask, and then they will be sitting spaced out, I guess similar to the way airlines said they were going to socially distance. I'm not sure if they accomplished that or not, but that will be our plan. Parents also have the option for providing transportation on their own, so we will do that that kind of a schedule. The budget, that is a totally different matter. So far, just on PPE alone, the West Bloomfield School District has spent approximately $500,000, and that's to get us started. We anticipate over the course of the school year that our additional costs will be in the $2 million range to just prepare for and navigate all of the requirements contained in our plan, in the governor's plan. It's been really disappointing at the state and federal level that our legislative leaders are missing in action. They have not taken the actions needed, whereas we in the trenches are working diligently day in and day out, have since March. Our legislature takes recesses, both federally and at the state level. I guess our state legislators are finally going to meet this coming Saturday and do something, but it's been terribly disappointing from my perspective to see the inaction at the federal and the state level. And regarding education, one of the more fundamental aspects of our economy and getting back to normal, and just totally neglecting it from a funding and guidance standpoint.
Dr. Hill, just another couple minutes with you. Anything else for us today before we let you go?
Now, I just want to encourage all families in the West Bloomfield community, if you have questions regarding our plan, to visit our website, www.wbsd.org, and you can get any questions answered. We have a frequently asked questions section. We also have a Talk to Us link if there are any questions that you have, and emails. Any way possible, please let us know what your questions are, and we will get back to you. And Tyler, I just want to compliment Civic Center TV again for the service that you're providing to the community with these very frequent and helpful broadcasts. It's good to hear how people are coping with the challenges, and that it takes a team effort community-wide to address the COVID-19, and I think you're playing a strong role in that. So we appreciate it.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much, Dr. Hill. Dr. Gerald Hill, the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, with us on the Oakland County Megacast as schools just a couple weeks away, a short time away from beginning their school year, and plans still changing day by day, week by week, as new information comes in, as new ideas come into play from these school districts, and they're trying to put their best foot forward to keep their staff and their students safe while also maintaining the continuity of learning.
Again, such kudos to all of these school leaders that are trying to navigate this. And I know you're not going to make every person happy. There are some parents that are adamant that they want their kids back in their classrooms. There are other parents that are struggling with the issue of childcare. Maybe having to choose between that job that puts food on the table and someone watching their child because, they don't have the access or the resources to be able to get someone to watch their kid while they're remote learning. So, all these school leaders are trying to navigate all of these fluctuating, cases, and it's changing weekly and daily, and they're having to be flexible. But at the end of the day, they're also trying to do what's best for the teachers, for the staff, for the families, and for the community. So they, like he said, they're working around the clock, and we appreciate what they are doing, because this is going to impact all of us, whether or not you have a kid in the school district or not.
That is going to do it for our show today. We are thanking you once again for joining us. You can tune in each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon for our live shows. Find more information about the coronavirus, including our top stories each day, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, and learn more information, watch full episodes, short clips, and interviews on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast. And of course, join us each and every day here on our show for our live shows, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. You can watch us throughout the afternoon for replays on Civic Center TV on Comcast 15, AT&T 99, and online on civiccentertv.com. We thank Matt DeRousse, Terry Welker, Woody Woodriffe, Zachary Yaksich, and Dr. Gerald Hill for joining us today on the program. And of course, thank our entire crew, including our booking producer, Jake Kustash, for getting us our guests each and every day and adjusting the things when things change. Larry Nyland, our Zoom producer, of course, for making sure all the guests are comfortable, ready to go, and looking and sounding good for you each and every day. And we also appreciate the great work of Erica Jones out in the field each and every day. This her final day with us this summer. She heads back down to the University of Miami. We appreciate the great work that she's done this fall and this summer, and hope to see her back here very soon. That is going to do it for us today. For Ronnie Dahl, I'm Tyler Keefe, thanking you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. We'll return at 10 a.m. on Wednesday.